Welcome to Miss Zahn's overview of Act 1 of The Tempest. Let's begin. At the very beginning of the play, we are introduced to a very hectic scene. There's a boat at sea in the middle of a tempest, or according to the dictionary, a wild and windy storm. The inhabitants on the boat are trying to react promptly in any hopes of keeping the boat afloat and surviving the storm. Other than the boatswain, master, and some mariners, the only other characters we encounter are a handful of the king's court, Sebastian, Antonio, and Gonzalo, and we are aware that the king and the prince are also aboard the ship. As the scene comes to a close, Antonio cries, "Let's all sink with the king." As we begin Act 1, Scene 2, our setting has changed to a remote island somewhere in the Mediterranean. We don't know its exact location, but I believe Shakespeare did this to add to the overall mystery of the island. In Act 1, Scene 2, we meet the following characters. Prospero, some type of magic man with a staff and a cloak. Miranda, Prospero's daughter, who is all but grown up on the island. Ariel, a spirit with an undisclosed gender. For the sake of this video, you'll hear me use the pronoun he because it sounds a little weird. Caliban, an inhabitant of the island who has been there for quite some time. And finally, Ferdinand, the king's son, who was placed conveniently on the island by direction of Prospero and execution of Ariel to cross paths with Miranda and Prospero as we close the scene. Let's break down the plot further using textual evidence. Following Miranda's concern for her father's act of sending the storm, Prospero decides to finally let her in on a bit of their family history. He asks her, "Canst thou remember a time before we came unto this cell?" And Miranda describes it as a far-off dream. All she can really remember are some women who tended her. Prospero goes on to share with his daughter that 12 years ago he was once the Duke of Milan. During his time as Duke, he became invested in quote-unquote secret studies, so he let his brother take care of running the affairs while he was busy with his books. But Antonio set all hearts in the state to what tune pleased his ear, line 103. Prospero goes on to say that his false brother awakened an evil nature and his ambition began growing, lines 112 and 125. After conferring with the King of Naples, a close friend and ally of Antonio's, they created a plan to presently extirpate Prospero and Miranda from Milan. According to the text, fated to the purpose did Antonio open the gates of Milan, and in the dead of darkness the ministers for their purpose hurried thence, me and my crying self. This is how I envision that rotten carcass of a butt they put Prospero and his baby in. Remember Gonzalo? We met him in Act 1, Scene 1. Well, he shows back up as the only real compassionate person during the big exile. He sends the father-daughter pair with essentials, including Prospero's books. This gesture can widely be attributed to the survival of the two. When the story finally comes to a close, Miranda asks, "Your reason for raising this sea storm?" "By accident most strange," Prospero replies, "bountiful fortune hath mine enemies brought to this shore, a most auspicious star." And then Prospero sketchily states, "Thou art inclined to sleep," and Miranda takes a little nap. Ariel promptly appears. Prospero asks, "Hast thou spirit performed to the point the tempest that I bade thee?" To which Ariel responds, "To every article. I boarded the king's ship, now in the beak, now in the waist, the deck, and every cabin I flamed amazement. Sometime I divide and burn in many places, on the topmast, the yards, and bowsprit. Would I flame distinctly, then meet and join." Ariel recounts a more famous quote of Shakespeare's spoken by Ferdinand as he quits the vessel and yells, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." I'm sorry. Hell is empty and all the devils are here! Ariel recounts to Prospero the whereabouts of everyone affected by the tempest. "In troops I have dispersed them about the isle. The king's son have I landed by himself, the mariners safely in the harbor. For the rest of the fleet, which I dispersed, they all have met again and are upon the Mediterranean float, bound sadly home for Naples, supposing that they saw the king's ship wrecked and his great person perish." But then there's a shift in tone in the conversation between Prospero and Ariel. Ariel believes his work is done, but Prospero says that the time between now and 6 p.m. is very important, indicating that Ariel would have to carry out even more tasks for him. Ariel confidently exclaims, "Let me remember thee what thou hast promised, which is not yet performed me." Wowza. To which Prospero eventually responds, "Dost thou forget from what a torment I did free thee?" And then the audience learns that Ariel was on the island far before Prospero, and a foul witch by the name of Sycorax magically imprisoned him to a tree, or in Shakespeare's words, confined thee into a cloven pine. Here are some of my favorite illustrations of this from the Google. Then Ariel goes back to his submissive self and completely changes his attitude. "I'll be correspondent to command and do my spiriting gently. What shall I do? Say what? What shall I do?" Once Ariel exits the scene on a secretive mission instructed by Prospero, he wakes Miranda to go visit his slave, Caliban, who according to Miranda is "a villain I do not love to look on," which makes us, as the reader, wonder what exactly Caliban's physical appearance is like. But we know Caliban serves as some value to Prospero and Miranda, as he makes our fire, fetches in our wood, and serves in offices that profit us, lines 373 to 75. However, we learn very quickly that Prospero's relationship with Caliban is quite different from that of his and Ariel's. The opening of the conversation are just curses and insults they say back and forth to each other. But Prospero lets us in on a pretty important detail. Prospero was kind to Caliban and even let him sleep in his own dwelling, until Caliban didst seek to violate the honor of my child. To which Caliban responds boldly, "Oh ho, would it had been done! Thou didst prevent me. I had peopled else this island with Calibans." Not cool, Caliban. Not cool. Miranda joins the conversation and informs the audience that she also was once very kind to Caliban, even teaching him their language so they could communicate with one another. But Caliban responds, "You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. The red plague rid you for learning me your language." So he's clearly not moved by Miranda's backstory. The closing of the scene shows Ariel luring Ferdinand to Prospero and Miranda through song. When Miranda first sets sight on Ferdinand, she doesn't actually think he's real. She believes him to be a spirit. Remember, the only men she has seen in her life are Prospero and Caliban. But Prospero informs her that he's not a spirit, but a goodly person. Miranda melts and states, "I might call him a thing divine, for nothing natural I ever saw so noble." Ferdinand reciprocates the interest and questions, "Oh, you wonder if you be a maid or no? Oh, if a virgin in your affection not gone forth, I'll make you the Queen of Naples." And this is how the scene closes. Prospero, who we as the audience knows good and well why Ferdinand is there, accuses him of being a spy that's trying to steal the island from him. He calls Ferdinand a traitor and tells him he is basically going to enslave him. "I'll manacle thy neck and feet together," he says in line 558. But Ferdinand, after being charmed and unable to move his sword, makes light of the imprisonment and states, "Might I but through my prison once a day behold this maid," and makes it his mission to win over Miranda. You might be wondering the reasoning as to why Prospero acts this way toward Ferdinand. Well, he lets us into this thought process in line 542. This swift business I must uneasy make, lest too light winning make the prize light. Think, why would Prospero want Ferdinand and Miranda to fall in love? To what purpose could this serve him? And that has been a quick overview of Act 1 of The Tempest. In Act 2, we will meet new characters and see what everybody else is up to on the island. Can't wait to read with you!